Hello, this is Mitch Urban presenting my defense application. All systems need defense applications. An intrusion can happen whether you're expecting it or not. Not all intrusions are even caught or detected while you're even using your system. If an application could track all intrusions or potential intrusions and even have a list of workers that are automatically resolving those threats, you could protect your system and learn from those intrusions to improve your security. In my application, the data structures I used are a priority queue used by the threat manager to prioritize threats. The devices all have parameters which are stored in a hash map, and when needed, those are transferred into a regular map using a get parameters method. Tables full of devices and threats, which are sortable, use an observable list, which is a GUI component of JavaFX. I have a linked list for holding timestamps for the line chart in my application. There's even a map of lists of threats for their histories per device. I've packaged my application into an executable file in a folder with the runtime environment and also the JavaFX libraries among some other libraries. And I will launch it now. What it does is captures all devices on my computer, which are either in operation or offline. And it gets the disk storage, the memory, the processor, and all internet devices. And if I click one, it will start populating this graph by capturing parameters relevant to the device and storing them in a time series. When your computer is at a normal operating state, you'll click the Capture Parameters button, which will populate the normal parameters, and then the thresholds will be set, determined by the expected increase or allowable increase to these values. And if something exceeds those expected values, it will be added to the priority queue where future versions of the program would have workers which would work to resolve threats while maintaining a history of the potential intrusions. So if anything were abnormal, if one of these wireless devices were to kick on, it would be tracked and addressed. And you will just hit the reset button to stop all available threads. Wow, something just started downloading there. It'll reset, it'll stop the graph, and then you can close the program. The defense application consists of 9 classes and one FXML design document for the GUI. The main scene is pretty simple. And the thing that's doing most of the work is this main controller class, which controls all of the other controllers, which are working with the data structures. This is the initialization of the controller. This is the timeline, which runs indefinitely. You just run timeline play, and it will run a keyframe every quarter second, or if you want, you can change this value very easily, and it will run all these methods every quarter second. Um, the main class is the device class, which contains information about each device, which is its own row in the device table controller. That includes device status, device type, the threshold configuration, the constructor, which sets up the parameters and the listeners for changes to those parameters. The parameters class, which each device class contains, has all these potential parameters, but not all of them are used in each case. It depends on which device type you're submitting as an argument to that method, which determines which method is run. And then when you want, you can get just the parameters which are populated with a value over 0 with this synchronized get parameters method, which creates a map. And that's what we're using to make the chart. The real-time chart was the hardest part of this application uh, because JavaFX doesn't really have a time series chart built in. It took me a while to come up with the idea of setting 60 category labels for each second in a minute and moving the data through those categories. So that's how the data moves from right to left. The threat controller, this is the main part of the application, which determines if something is a threat by comparing it to other threats to put it in the correct location in the priority queue, depending on the threat severity. It also catalogs the threat type in theory. That is performed by the threat manager, which has a list of threat history, a priority queue of the active threat queue, and a history for each device of previous threats. It also has a list of threat listeners, which are listening for changes to the threats and reporting on those. I also have sorting methods for analyzing the threats by type, uh, by device, or even by threat ID, which I have uh, commented out right now. And I think besides the threat table controller, which just uh, displays the threat history per device, I think that's about it. Thank you all for watching and have a great winter break.